My dear friends, life will never hand you comfort as the path to growth. The things that transform you, the things that shape your mind, body and spirit, they are never easy. They are hard. Yet if you learn to rewire your mind, you can shift from avoiding difficulty to craving it. You see, the human brain is like a wild horse. If left untamed, it runs toward comfort, toward laziness, toward distraction. But if you train it, if you guide it, it becomes your most powerful ally. The secret is not to hope that challenges will disappear, but to make your brain desire them. When you train your body, muscles grow stronger by resistance. The same law applies to the mind. Every time you face something uncomfortable, waking up early, sitting in silence, training when tired, your brain learns to associate difficulty with growth, not suffering. Think about this: pain and struggle are not punishments. They are signals of transformation. The monk who meditates for hours, the warrior who trains in the rain, the student who studies when others sleep, they have trained their minds to crave what others run away from. So if you want to live a life of strength, you must ask yourself, what if I no longer feared the hard things? What if I began to seek them? Start small, train your brain daily, choose the harder option on purpose, walk instead of ride, read instead of scroll, push when your body says stop. These small victories accumulate. Slowly your brain begins to understand. Hard things mean progress. Hard things mean growth. Hard things mean life. And one day you will wake up and realize, you no longer fear difficulty, you crave it. Because you know the easy path makes you weaker, the hard path makes you limitless. The human brain is an extraordinary organ. It is capable of creativity, resilience, and profound clarity. Yet if we look closely, we notice something peculiar. The brain does not naturally move toward what is difficult. Instead, it seeks comfort. It looks for the easy road, the path where energy is preserved and obstacles are avoided. This is not because the brain is weak. It is because for thousands of years survival demanded this instinct. In times when food was scarce and dangers were constant, conserving energy and avoiding unnecessary struggle kept us alive. But today that same instinct works against us. In a world where survival is no longer the greatest challenge, the pursuit of comfort chains us to mediocrity. Think of how quickly the brain pushes you away from discomfort. When the alarm clock rings at dawn, the first voice you hear is not one of discipline but of resistance. Stay in bed, just a little longer. When you are faced with the choice of training your body or resting on the couch, the brain whispers, why suffer? Take the easy way. This instinct is ancient. It once protected our ancestors from wasting precious energy, but now it sabotages our growth. Every modern comfort, soft beds, endless entertainment, instant food, feeds this craving. And so without realizing it, we become prisoners of our own biology, trapped in cycles of seeking ease, never questioning if ease is the path we should walk. But what happens when a person constantly gives in to this craving? Slowly the spirit weakens, the body grows sluggish, the will becomes fragile, and the fire inside begins to dim. The brain designed for survival begins to suffocate the very essence of what it means to live fully. Because survival is not living. To live is to rise, to stretch beyond limits, to embrace discomfort willingly, and to grow from it. Yet the default setting of the brain does not care for growth, it only cares for safety. This is why so many people remain stuck. They wonder why motivation never comes, why discipline seems impossible, why their goals feel distant. The answer is simple. The brain is pulling them back to its default craving, comfort. Unless we recognize this truth, we will forever fight an invisible enemy within ourselves. The first step to transformation is not action, it is awareness. You must see clearly that your brain's desire for comfort is not a personal weakness, but a universal truth. Every human being is born with this same instinct. The difference between those who achieve greatness and those who remain average is not that one was born stronger or more talented. It is that one chose to master this instinct while the other obeyed it. When you realize that comfort is the brain's default, you no longer take the voice of resistance as your master. You begin to question it, to observe it, and to challenge it. And in this awareness, a new path opens, the path where you are no longer a servant to comfort, but the one who decides whether comfort is deserved or whether discomfort must be embraced. When most people encounter difficulty, their first instinct is to label it as suffering. A demanding workout feels like punishment. A long study session feels like a burden. An uncomfortable silence during meditation feels like torture. But these interpretations are not absolute truths. They are merely the meanings we attach to experiences. The human brain is a meaning-making machine. It constantly assigns labels to everything you feel and do. If you label difficulty as pain, you will flee from it. If you label it as progress, you will move toward it. This is why rewiring the association is essential. The event itself does not change, but the meaning you give it changes everything. A heavy stone remains a heavy stone, but for one person, it is an unbearable weight, while for another it is a tool to strengthen the body. The difference lies not in the stone, but in the interpretation. Rewiring association is like retraining a stubborn animal. The brain left untrained links struggle with avoidance. It whispers, "This hurts, so escape." But you can deliberately create a new connection. "This hurts, therefore I am growing." Imagine running until your lungs burn. The old association says, "Stop, you are suffering." The new association says, "Yes, this sensation means I am alive, I am expanding my capacity." The monk who meditates in stillness does not interpret silence as emptiness. He interprets it as depth, as entering the unseen world of the mind. The warrior who faces hardship does not label it as cruelty. He labels it as training for resilience. In both cases, the external condition is the same: silence, hardship, fatigue. What changes is the mental frame that interprets it. And when the frame changes, the relationship with difficulty transforms. This transformation does not happen instantly. Rewiring the mind requires consistent exposure to difficulty while consciously reframing it. Each time you encounter struggle, you must pause and remind yourself, this is not suffering. This is strength in disguise. Over time, the brain begins to form new neural pathways. The discomfort of exercise becomes linked with the pride of improvement. The strain of discipline becomes linked with the dignity of self-control. The challenge of waking up early becomes linked with clarity and purpose. Slowly, the old associations weaken, and the new ones grow stronger. And one day, without realizing it, you begin to seek difficulty, not avoid it. You may even smile when you encounter resistance, because the brain now associates it with the joy of growth. It is important to understand that life is not designed to remove difficulty for you. The waves of hardship will always come, whether you wish for them or not. But if you have rewired your associations, those waves will no longer drown you. They will carry you forward. Imagine two people facing the same storm. One cries, "Why me? This is suffering." The other says, "This is my training. This storm is shaping me." The storm itself is the same, but the internal interpretation changes the entire experience. That is the power of association. If you can teach your brain to see difficulty not as punishment but as preparation, you will never run from it again. You will walk into it with steady breath and a calm heart, because you know this is where growth lives. If you observe nature closely, you will see that growth is always born from resistance. A seed must push against the weight of the soil before it can rise into the light. A river carves valleys only through constant pressure against stone. Even your own body is shaped by this law. Muscles grow not when they are at rest, but when they are challenged beyond their comfort. Without resistance, nothing in life becomes strong. This truth is not limited to the physical. It extends to the mind, the emotions, and the spirit. A person who never faces difficulty remains fragile, like a tree grown in a greenhouse, safe, protected, but unprepared for the storm. Resistance is not an obstacle in your path. It is the very force that carves the path forward. When you lift a heavy weight, your muscles tear at the microscopic level. This tearing is uncomfortable, sometimes even painful. But through the body's repair process, those fibers become stronger, thicker, more resilient. The principle is the same in life's challenges. Every time you face rejection, failure, or hardship, something within you tears. It feels unpleasant. But if you allow yourself to endure, the repair process of the spirit begins. You become wiser, more disciplined, more capable. The problem is that most people run away at the first sign of this tearing. They feel the discomfort and think, this is too much. They withdraw, they stop, and in doing so they deny themselves the very growth they long for. Resistance only becomes transformation when it is faced, not avoided. It is important to recognize that strength does not appear in the absence of difficulty, but in the presence of it. A sword becomes sharp only by grinding against stone. Fire refines gold by burning away impurities. In the same way, hardship reveals what is essential within you. If you avoid resistance, you avoid discovering the depths of your own potential. Think of the people you admire: athletes, artists, thinkers, leaders. What do they all share? Not an easy path, but a path filled with resistance. They were tested, stretched, and refined by challenges. They did not grow strong in spite of resistance. They grew strong because of it. The very things that others call obstacles they called opportunities. They embraced the law of resistance as the foundation of their strength. This is why seeking comfort weakens you while seeking resistance empowers you. Each time you deliberately face difficulty, you are training your capacity to endure and to expand. You are signaling to your brain and body, I will not collapse under pressure, I will adapt. The monk who sits in stillness for hours resists the restless mind until calmness emerges. The martial artist who repeats the same strike 1,000 times resists boredom until mastery appears. The student who studies long into the night resists fatigue until clarity unfolds. In every case, resistance becomes the teacher, and strength becomes the reward. To live without resistance is to live without growth. To welcome resistance is to step into the only process by which true strength is ever built. Discipline is often misunderstood. Many people imagine it as a sudden dramatic act of willpower, a heroic effort that requires extraordinary strength. But true discipline does not arrive in grand gestures. It is cultivated in small deliberate acts, repeated day after day. Just as water shapes stone not through a single strike, but through constant dripping, discipline is born from steady practice in the seemingly ordinary moments of life. The decision to rise with the alarm instead of pressing snooze, the choice to walk rather than drive, the act of reading a few pages instead of mindlessly scrolling. These are not small in their effect. They are the daily chisels that carve the character of a disciplined mind. Through these minor victories, the brain slowly learns that choosing the harder path is not punishment, but progress. It is easy to underestimate these acts because they appear so simple. What difference does it make if I wake up 10 minutes earlier, if I train when I am tired, if I say no to one more distraction? But over time, these choices accumulate. They build momentum. Imagine a drop of ink falling into a glass of clear water. At first it seems insignificant, but with each drop, the water changes until it is entirely transformed. Discipline works in the same way. Each small act may feel invisible in the moment, but together they rewire the mind. They shift your identity. You begin to see yourself not as someone who avoids challenges, but as someone who seeks them. The brain, conditioned by repetition, no longer fears the discomfort of effort. It starts to crave it. What once felt heavy becomes natural, and what once felt impossible becomes the baseline of your strength. Consider the martial arts student who enters the training hall for the first time. His movements are clumsy, his stamina weak, his patience short. If he waits for the perfect moment to train, or if he expects mastery overnight, he will fail. But if he shows up every day, even for a short practice, something begins to change. His body adapts, his mind steadies, his spirit strengthens. The transformation is not sudden. It is built through countless small acts of showing up, of repeating the basics, of honoring the process. This principle applies to every part of life. The writer who writes a page daily, the student who studies consistently, the seeker who meditates a little longer each morning, all discover that greatness is not built in leaps, but in steps. These steps may be small, but they are powerful because they are consistent. Small acts of discipline also serve another purpose. They weaken the voice of resistance. Each time you choose the harder option, you prove to yourself that comfort does not control you. This builds confidence, not in theory, but in lived experience. You no longer see yourself as someone who wants to be disciplined. You see yourself as someone who already is. This shift in self-perception is critical. The brain begins to trust that when difficulty arises, you will not run. And so discipline becomes less about fighting inner battles and more about living in alignment with your identity. The simple act of taking a cold shower, of finishing the last repetition, of staying focused for one more minute, they all become reminders. I am the kind of person who chooses growth over ease. And slowly the small acts accumulate into an unshakable foundation of strength, one that no external challenge can easily break. Fear is one of the most powerful emotions in the human experience. It is the mind's natural response to the unknown, to discomfort, to potential failure. At its root, fear is not the enemy. It is a messenger. It tells you here lies something beyond your control. Here lies something you have not yet mastered. For most people, this message creates avoidance. They step back, they retreat into safety. But the truth is that fear points directly to the path of growth. Whatever you fear holds within it the exact challenge you must embrace if you wish to expand. To transform fear into craving is to change your relationship with it. Instead of hearing fear as a warning to escape, you hear it as an invitation to step forward. You begin to see fear not as a cage, but as a compass, guiding you toward the areas of life that will refine and strengthen you. The transformation begins by shifting perspective. When fear arises, instead of labeling it as danger, you label it as opportunity. The trembling before a speech, the hesitation before a difficult conversation, the dread before a demanding task, these are signals of growth waiting to unfold. The body reacts with racing heart, shallow breath, restless thoughts, but these sensations are not signs of weakness. They are signs that you are standing at the edge of your current limits, and where the edge exists, growth is possible. To crave this feeling is to understand that every great breakthrough, whether physical, mental, or spiritual, was preceded by fear. No warrior entered battle without it. No monk entered deep meditation without it. No seeker of wisdom ventured into the unknown without it. Fear is the doorway, and to crave it is to run toward that doorway, knowing it leads to transformation. This shift does not come through theory alone. It is trained through deliberate action. Each time you face fear, even in small ways, you condition the brain to reframe it. Consider the person who fears cold water but chooses to step into it anyway. At first the body resists, the mind protests, but then comes the realization, I survived, and I am stronger for it. That experience plants a new seed in the brain. Fear was not destruction, but growth. The same is true for any challenge. Speaking up when silence feels safer, persisting when quitting feels easier, trying again after failure feels humiliating. Each act rewires the association between fear and experience. What was once perceived as unbearable becomes thrilling. What was once seen as a threat becomes a teacher. Slowly the brain begins to anticipate the reward hidden within fear, until fear itself is no longer a signal of danger, but of potential waiting to be unlocked. The ultimate transformation is when the sensation of fear becomes indistinguishable from excitement. The same physiological response, racing heart, heightened senses, sharp focus, can either cripple or empower, depending on interpretation. Those who have trained themselves see fear as energy, as a sign that life is offering them a chance to expand. They crave this energy because it reminds them they are alive, they are stretching, they are breaking free from limitation. Imagine a life where instead of shrinking back from challenges, you move eagerly toward them, not because they are easy, but because they awaken something within you. This is the essence of turning fear into craving, recognizing that the very sensations that once controlled you now fuel you, guiding you deeper into the path of strength, resilience, and inner freedom. My dear friends, the path of transformation is not hidden. It is not reserved for the chosen few. It is here in the decisions you make each day. Your brain will always whisper for comfort, but you have the power to retrain it. You can teach it to see difficulty not as punishment, but as progress, not as suffering, but as strength. Resistance will become your teacher, small acts of discipline will become your foundation, and fear itself will become your guide. Do not wait for the perfect moment. Do not wait for motivation to appear like a spark in the darkness. Begin now, with what you have, where you are. Choose the harder path, not because it is easy, but because it shapes you. Let every discomfort remind you that you are growing. Let every challenge remind you that you are alive. The more you walk this path, the less you will run from struggle, and the more you will crave it. And when that moment comes, when your mind no longer resists difficulty, but welcomes it, you will understand something profound. The very things that once held you back have become the fuel that carries you forward. You will no longer be a prisoner of comfort. You will be the master of your mind, the sculptor of your spirit, the one who walks into the storm with calm steps and steady breath. This is the way of strength. This is the way of freedom, and it begins with one choice, the choice to stop running from the hard things and to start craving them.